Hello, and welcome back to Shelf Talks, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of female founders bringing their product-based businesses to retail shelves. I'm your host, Roberta, and today on this episode, I'm sitting down with Jillian Salinas, founder of Beach City Coffee, a woman-owned, California-based coffee brand that is really redefining what it looks like to scale in a crowded category with purpose, sustainability, and a clear point of view. Great to have you here, Jillian.
Thank you for having me. It's so fun to talk about this today.
Yeah. So I know you've been, building your brand for about 15 years now, but if we can go back prior to that, what did life look like and where did the love of coffee come from?
Yes. So my husband and I actually started roasting coffee about 17 years ago when we were in college. And we started with a popcorn popper, like an old school popcorn popper with a wooden dowel that we would literally use to mix the coffee beans. And then we got an actual coffee roaster and then a bigger coffee roaster. And then we ended up having to, at one point, move out of our 1-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica because the coffee roaster that we bought didn't fit in the apartment.
Were you
And
doing this
so
all for fun or?
we were doing it mainly for fun. We just really liked roasting coffee. And then our friends and family started really liking it. And then one thing that I noticed as I got more into coffee roasting is that women were really highly underrepresented in coffee ownership and coffee roasting roles. And the other thing that really bothered me about the industry was how much waste there was, especially around packaging. And back when I was in college, it was like when Keurigs were coming out and I was like, so much waste. It's heartbreaking. So not only did I think we could have a lot of fun building Beach City, but could actually make a difference too.
So you were just kind of in love with coffee and just said one day, like, let's try to make it at home. And then it kind of just grew from there.
Yes. Yes. So when we first moved into when we moved out of that apartment, we found this little shack of a house 1 block in from the beach in Santa Monica. And it was perfect because it had this little shed on the side that was the perfect size for our roaster. And so that is actually where we got our first cottage food license, which is how we first started manufacturing ourselves.
So when was the moment that you said, I want to create a brand? And then what were first steps? And even, you got your cottage license, but what were first steps in actually getting it out to consumers?
So like I said, we started with our friends and family and we kind of built a subscription model first. And then before that, I had worked in tech companies and so did my husband. So we started selling to tech offices in Santa Monica.
Oh, smart.
And that was really I had just had my first baby. So it was the perfect time to kind of build the business and still be able to stay home with him. And it really took off. We got into a ton of tech offices. And that was really our focus for a long time until COVID hit and all those tech offices shut down. And that was kind of when we got into retail.
Got it. So did you already have a retail strategy? Was that part of your vision when you first started creating the brand?
So I had always wanted to be in retail. I thought, how cool would it be to be in Whole Foods or something like that? But I didn't immediately think that, oh, okay, we're going to go and do that. It wasn't until COVID hit and you really saw all these grocery stores needing product. And here I have a huge coffee roaster and no more business anymore because all the offices are shut down. And I thought, okay, now is the time. Let's try and get into Whole Foods. And so that was my first target and actually the first retailer that ended up picking us up.
So how did that happen? How did you even get connected to them?
We really focused on LinkedIn. It was a great platform for us to be able to connect with buyers, especially during COVID when you couldn't do trade shows and things like that to connect with them. And so I had a whole strategy around LinkedIn and I would send anyone and everyone that would take a sample from me at that time. And each sample, I would put a lot of effort into it and handwrite a note to them. And even if they weren't the direct buyer, I thought they might be connected to someone. And so I probably sent I don't know, maybe 30 samples to Whole Foods, different people in Whole Foods. And each time I thought, this probably won't go anywhere, but you never know. And eventually we got the message that we were going to be picked up by them.
Yeah. So were you were just getting responses and you were just asking, hey, can I send you a sample? And people responded and said,
Send you a
sure,
sample?
here's the
Yep.
address.
Yep. And then I did submit through the normal channel as well. But I think it was that kind of combined approach of being able to kind of have lots of touch points. And I'm pretty sure some of those people maybe went back and talked to the buyer in LA.
Yeah.
And Whole Foods is really locally driven, so that worked out as well. They really are all about local brands.
Is there anything specific in how you reached out, whether it's the buyers or anyone else that worked for Whole Foods, that you feel really helped in connecting your brand to Whole Foods?
Yes, definitely. being persistent. We live by the saying in Beach City Coffee that no just means yes later. And so when you kind of live by that, the no's just fuel you because you're excited to get them to change their mind.
So did you tell your story through LinkedIn?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Tell our story, and we roast the coffee ourselves, which is a big thing. A lot of companies use co-packers. So being able to tell that and that we're really focused on the quality, and then also really leaning into our value propositions. So the fact that we source only fair trade organic coffee. And then I've always been on this mission around packaging and improving the packaging. And so we started with recyclable packaging. And then I realized that my city didn't recycle the recyclable bag that I had, and that we were basically like wish cycling is this term that I heard. And I just knew there had to be something better. And so I kept looking. And at the time, I could only find bags that were 60% compostable. So you still had to remove the heat seal and the bag type. But I thought, you know what, this is better. And I bet if I keep looking, I'm going to be able to find 100% compostable. So we started with the 60% and I just kept searching. And eventually I did find. And so last year we switched to 100% compostable bags. And I think those things,
Great.
like just really staying clear on your values, can go a long way.
Yeah. When you're looking for compostable bags, what is that process? Is that you just searching online and reaching out to manufacturers and asking for samples, or what does that look like?
Yes, exactly that. And the problem was that I was finding is that in the US, there just wasn't a lot of options for that. There was maybe like one big company that had compostable bags, and that was the one that was only 60%. So I kind of had to cast a wider net and look outside of the US to try and find them. And I'm hoping that more people will do that, and then it's going to be more accessible. And so we'll see a lot more of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's great to hear too, that it's just really putting in the work to continue to research and find it. Even if it's locally that you're looking and you can't find it, doesn't mean you can't find it in a bigger space.
And especially if it's something that you really care about, then you'll probably be able to get consumers to see that too. And then even if it's a little bit more expensive, there's real value there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then your coffee beans. So your coffee beans are organic, fair trade.
Grade, and all specialty grade. I'm never gonna sell anyone something that I wasn't gonna drink myself, so I wanted it to be, like, exactly what we would be roasting for ourselves.
So how did you find that?
I like organic products, and so I knew we were gonna go organic, and then I loved what fair trade represented, and I really didn't realize how much fair trade does. So in addition to the fair trade price that you pay, on top of that, 20 cents for every pound of coffee bought on fair trade terms goes to producers' community development funds. So that can be used for things that the producers use on their farm, or it could be used towards their community. So one of the producers that we worked with this last year, they bought books for like a ton of school children with these community development funds.
Wow.
And it's stuff like that you just don't know. And that's now baked into our cost of goods and all that. So just by selling my coffee and operating business as usual, we're like doing a lot of good behind the scenes, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. I love that. So you're sending out samples to whoever you can at Whole Foods.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then you finally get a response. Was the response to
Yes.
pitch to them? Was it just an instant, we want you in stores? What did that look like?
It was the local purveyor in the LA region, or maybe she was California at the time, I'm not sure. But she said, I really liked the coffee. Here's this form, fill it out. And it was like their new item form to present for their category review. So I submitted that, and that was in September of 2021. And then a month later, in October of 2021, we got the news that we would be brought in on their full Southern Pacific region, which is 61 stores.
Okay.
And we also asked them to hook us up with the distributor Unify, because a lot of times with distributors, it's very much, as you know, it's a chicken and the egg situation where it's like you can't really get into a distributor unless you have the grocery stores, but the grocery stores only want you if you're with the distributor. So that was really helpful to us too. But one interesting thing that happened in that onboarding is that, so October 2021, we got the official notice. We didn't launch in stores until January 2023. I mean, it's always a long process in retail, but
Right.
Whole Foods went through some major changes during that time. So it prolonged it even further. So I think that's something that people don't know, is like how long these category reviews are. And then sometimes it's delayed even further.
Yeah. Were you given a date and then that date got pushed out, or you were never given a date post kind of really getting set up in the system?
So I think the first time, like when we first got into Whole Foods, I don't think I was given an official date, but there was one and it was pushed back. More recently, last year, we added 3 additional SKUs to Whole Foods. And that time they did give us an official date. I think we were more in the mix and I knew more what was going on too because I was already a supplier. But that was again pushed back. So sometimes that happens just regardless, even if you know what the data is. And actually, what was interesting about that reset being delayed was that the distributor had already taken the product from us. So it was then just sitting with the distributor.
Got it. Because that's going to be my question as well: is how do you manage inventory in situations and with volatility like that?
Yeah. Well, one nice thing about manufacturing for yourself is that you have a little bit more control. My stepsister actually owns a protein cookie company, but she
Really?
doesn't manufacture it herself. Yes. And so it's been interesting to see like how that creates more challenges because if I need to produce 100 cases tomorrow, I just hop on the roaster and start roasting. Whereas if you're having somebody else package it for you, it can take a lot longer to turn around.
Yeah. So you're still manufacturing and making it in your warehouse to have full control.
Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. I used to roast it all myself.
Oh, really? Do you have a team now?
Yes, I have a team of roasters, which has been one of the challenging parts too about growing is starting off doing it all yourself and then you have to find people that you really trust and be able to hand it off to them and trust them
Yeah.
to do it even though mistakes are going to happen. So,
Right. Gotta trust them. So
yes.
you finally launched in 2023 into those Whole Foods. What did early performance look like, and was it what you expected?
Yeah, so I really had no gauge of like what to expect. So I reached out to our buyer trying to get them to give me some details. And it's hard when you're working with big companies like that. You're not going to get any hand holding. So luckily, I think one of the things that was awesome about my product, which I'll show you, are bags. This is our first SKU. But I think one of the things that really helped us sell right off the bat is that our product is the packaging, it's a little bit more simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that a lot of the products on the shelf had so much going on. And so I think it kind of was eye catching that it was a little bit more simple. And then we are really big into doing demos, so samplings. And one of the things that's really awesome about Whole Foods is that they allow brands to do the samplings themselves. And so that's super powerful, being able to go in yourself and sell and communicate to customers. And then you also get real time feedback. So I'll still go in and do demos myself. I think it's really fun and I always get really great feedback. And then I also have built out a team of brand ambassadors because I think it's really great, again, if you can have somebody that works for you and can really communicate your story well. But yeah, that's really moved the needle for us. And so I've kind of replicated that now that we've grown into other retailers. Highly recommend doing samplings.
Did you get any surprising feedback during those initial samplings that you were doing in stores?
I think one of the things that surprised me the most is I knew that being a woman coffee roaster that we were really kind of breaking the glass ceiling in that way, but I didn't realize how much consumers really wanted to support women. Like they were so excited to be speaking to a women founder and I didn't expect that. So that was really special.
Yeah. Any changes in your packaging, or was that simplified packaging like really what stood out on shelf and continued to be a driver from a performance standpoint?
Yes, so our bags looked pretty similar to the original bag. I actually started with an 8-ounce bag in the beginning, and it was like this craft paper with just the logo on the front. And then the only real changes has been like the certifications. We've always used organic coffee, but it took us a while to be able to add the certification. But yeah, we pretty much stayed consistent
No,
with
that's
our
great.
packaging.
That's great. You didn't have to do any major changes once you were on shelf.
Yes, well, except changing to 100% compostable.
Right. So when you initially launched from a SKU perspective, how many SKUs did you initially launch with? I know you said just now you added 3, but what did that initial
Yes.
layout look like?
Yeah, so we started with the one SKU, and then what really drove us to add on SKUs was I trying to get, it was like Bristol Farms or one of those retailers to take on our coffee. And he said he would only take on our coffee once we had 3 or 4 SKUs. I watched, it was a YouTube video, and I think it was the founder of like Vita Coco or some big company. And he said that having more SKUs was a real game changer for him on retail shelves because you're having more presence. And I realized that too. And then I think that's like when we had the additional SKUs, it was easier for us to go and pitch to stores like Kroger or Walmart, having more
Yeah.
varieties. And like now we're going to go and sell to Costco and they also want us to have like at least 3 to 4 SKUs.
Yeah. It allows too for retailers to choose like how many they want, right? They have a selection of an assortment that they can scale to whatever space they have available on shelf.
Yes. And I also think like when you come out with new products, it's also such a great time to reconnect with your retail buyers. Cause like I mentioned, it's kind of hard to get a good communication with them. So that's an easy touch point right there. You're coming out with something new or maybe you're marketing, some things like that.
Yeah. So when you thought about retail getting into Whole Foods, was that something that you chose what the retail will be on shelf? Was that assistance from your buyers as you were having those conversations?
So I started a cookie company before I started Beach City
Wow.
Coffee. And
You've
it was
always been an
when I was
entrepreneur.
in, yes, I have. I loved baking cookies. And so I thought, oh, I should make a cookie company. But at the time, you can't manufacture a cookie in your kitchen. So I had a co-packer doing it. And it was a really good lesson in all this because the only grocery store I could get to pick up this cookie was Air One. And the reason for that was it was so expensive. They were the only ones that would buy it. And so that was a really good lesson for me because then when I went into the coffee business, one of the things why I started it too is I knew I could manufacture it myself. That would save a lot of the costs. And I also think with organic products that if they're more affordable, more people would buy them. I mean, consumers are more educated now than ever.
Yes.
And so I've always tried to keep our margin a little tighter with the goal of selling more volume. So I just basically would keep our costs as low as I can, add in my margin, and then go to retail with it. So it was always just keeping it as tight as I can. So I actually tried to pitch our 3 new SKUs to Whole Foods the year prior to last year, and I was afraid that costs would go up a lot. So I priced it a lot higher and they didn't take it. She was so excited about it, but then didn't take it. And I realized it's the price. You gotta stay consistent with your pricing.
Yeah.
Luckily, things didn't go up then as much as I thought. And so we were able to come back with a competitive price and they took the extra SKUs.
No, that's great. That's a good lesson too, I think, in regards to the margin is the margin, right? So if you start one way, that's really from a buyer's standpoint where they feel like any growth will continue to happen unless you change outside of that specific category, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I do see that like when our coffee is priced a little less, it sells a lot more.
So do you do promotions? Is that part of the strategy in driving trial?
Yes, absolutely. Especially with like a lot of these retailers that we're in, they really require you to do the promotions. But I do think it helps and I have gotten feedback from people, "Hey, I tried your coffee when it was on sale on Prime. I'm like a lifelong buyer now." So it does help to do those promotions too.
So your first retailer was actually, it sounds like your dream retailer.
Yes, it was.
Which is amazing. I think, a lot of times it takes a while and a build up until they get there. So that's kudos to you for being able to do that and really being focused, laser focused, it sounds like from a LinkedIn perspective to get connected. What made you think post Whole Foods that you wanted to go into another retailer? And also what made you feel ready to go into another retailer?
So we've always wanted to scale in a really responsible way in that we would continue to always buy fair trade organic coffee and continue to buy our compostable packaging. So I wanted to make sure that whenever we're doing that, we're able to still hold those values. I really wanted to have our own manufacturing facility, our own roasting facility. And when we first got into Whole Foods, you can't do that with a cottage foods license. So I went and worked out of a shared roasting facility, which worked really well as we scaled. But I was looking to have our own roasting facility. And so I wanted to try and build up our volume further. And I knew that we were ready to do it. We figured out what worked in Whole Foods and we can now go and replicate that in other stores. And so, yeah, so I felt ready. And then it was just reaching out and doing the meetings and trying and being persistent.
Yeah. So who was the next retailer on your kind of hit list?
So I think that the next biggest one that actually I had 2 that were kind of going on right at the same time, which was Walmart and Kroger. And so we got accepted to Walmart has a big open call for suppliers every year, which I highly recommend trying to attend. It's really great and they do want to discover products that are more local. And so that was exciting. I thought it was a very big long shot. And then I also right around that same time got a meeting with Kroger and it was kind of crazy. It was like January 2nd was the meeting and they give you 1 meeting time and this you either do it or you lose it. So the pressure's on.
Right.
But yeah, so it was a really exciting time of pitching for us. And yeah, we just got lucky and they saw the vision. And at one point the Walmart buyer in the call said, he wasn't sure. And I was like, well, I think like no other coffee brand speaks to California more than Beach City Coffee. So I think just really selling it on it until the last minute.
Yeah.
And yeah, and those category reviews take so long. So you do those meetings and you're not going to hear back for months. And so I had no idea whether it would go anywhere. I did it in like September and I didn't hear till like March or April.
Was there any follow-up that you did during that time of wait, or was it really just waiting until you get a response or feedback?
I think that if I was to give someone else advice, I would say just wait because they're going to come back to you. I of course did little nudges because I couldn't help myself. So I would try to update them. For instance, oh, we now have 100% compostable bags, or maybe we're featured in a magazine. I would do little touch points like that. But realistically, like they're going to get back to you. If you're in their review, you're in their review. So
So just gonna be patient.
yes, be
Yeah.
patient.
With you being in Whole Foods, which is a little bit more, I think, overall premium priced than Walmart, how does that affect your retails? Are you the same retailer across Kroger, Whole Foods, and Walmart, or do you have to do any differentiation or different sizes or anything like that in order to support those shelves?
So we are the same, it's the same product at all on all of those. I think like with stores like Costco, they sometimes will want different pack sizes, but it seems like our bags are pretty standard on every shelf.
Yeah. And then as
Yeah.
you're adding to those other retailers, because you said you were making it by yourself, is that when you started adding Kroger and Walmart that you then needed to hire a team to help roast the coffee?
So I hired, right when we got into Whole Foods, I hired two part-time girls that would help me, one roaster and one packaging girl. And it was just like us three, and we would just put in the long hours. A lot of weeks, they were only working for me like an hour or two a week. And as we grow, they stuck with me. And now one of them works for me full time, which is awesome. And that's one of the hardest parts too.
Is growing the team? Let's talk a little
Yeah,
bit
and
about
finding
that.
people you can trust, it's really hard. Those two girls, those have been like my core employees and they're amazing. So if you can find people that you trust that are awesome, get them to stick with you. It just makes your life so much easier. And now I've started hiring and I have found some more good team members, but it takes time.
Yeah. Do you have any advice?
I feel like you really don't know until they start working with you too. You really got to like work with people. And I think the best thing too is if you can be there and show them that you're willing to put in the hard work too, so you're not just bossing them around. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. They see you're just as committed.
Yes.
So it seems like you can control definitely how you manufacture and the pace as you're adding more retailers. When it comes to getting ingredients, has there been any challenges there, or how do you ensure that you're getting enough of the ingredients in order to actually manufacture?
Yes. So previously, we were buying a lot of spot coffee, which means like I'm just going to our coffee supplier and saying, what do you have available right now? And I want to buy that. And I was still only buying fair trade organic coffee, but it was, what did you have available? Now that we're having a lot more volume and I'm able to forecast a lot better, I'm able to now contract containers of coffee, which is awesome because it also reduced our costs a lot. And it's just a lot better way to buy. So obviously it took the scale to get there. But yeah, so we have changed the way that we've bought. And so now I have a container of coffee and it sits at a warehouse and then I pull it fresh whenever we want to roast. But we're going through it really fast, so it's not really sitting there too long.
And with that, you were talking about how you kind of learned like a model in which to really drive trial when you were initially at Whole Foods, then expanding into those other retailers. So is that the same model that you're using? A lot of sampling and trials in that way to drive new
Yes.
consumers?
Yes. I knew that worked. And so I really wanted to replicate that. The one problem is that not all retailers do those demos in the same way. So, for instance, with Kroger, we have to use their demo team, which they still have a great demo team, but it changes things a lot, right? I
Hmm.
can't be the one going and talking to people or my team. And so you have to be able to really communicate well your value propositions to those people so they can then go and sell your coffee. I think that being able to do it yourself or having your own team do those demos is a lot more compelling, but it still does work really well. And then in Walmart, they like you to use their team as well. You can't do them in every store. So, yeah, there are different like challenges with different retailers, but we still do apply that because again, like nothing beats just getting that coffee into people's hands and then they
Definitely.
have it. And it's also a great way to like talk about being women owned or compostable packaging and things like that.
Yeah. With that training with the teams that work directly for those grocery stores, is that a phone call? Is that a training sheet? Like what communication do you have in really getting your story told?
Yes, it's a sheet like you fill out. It's just like a simple bullets that you put down. You can have a meeting with their head people, but you're not actually typically talking with the people that are doing the in-store demos. So you just have to be able to communicate it really clearly on paper.
Yeah. Which it's your brand, so you're an expert in really being able to communicate, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
So has there been anything surprising as you've been getting into these retail stores that you really didn't know about retail until your product was on shelf?
A couple things I would say consumers don't understand how retail prices work. Like I think they see that my coffee is priced on the shelf and they assume like I just came up with that price. I don't think they realize that a distributor's margin goes into it and then the grocery store margin. And so I think it'd be nice if the general public knew like how these things are priced. And then the other thing that I noticed was when our coffee would run out of stock on the shelves, I assumed that the grocery store buyers or whoever would immediately reorder, and that was not something that I had to worry about, and that was wrong. So right when we got into Whole Foods, I noticed that some of the stores right near me would not restock right away, and then sometimes it would be like a week, and I'm like, wait, that's a lot of lost sales right there. So I started having my team calling, going to visit the stores, and then my husband, he's a big tech guy, and he's like, this is crazy. You should not be spending this much time doing this. And so he actually made me a platform that tracks my coffee, whether it's in stock at every single retailer that we're in every single day. And that way, if I'm out of stock with for more than 5 days, I can call them and be like, hey, can you please reorder?
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yes. And I didn't realize what a big thing that would be and how
Yeah.
important it would be to look at that because it's still an issue and we still have to call. But again, that's a really nice touch point because then you can say, hey, please reorder, but like, can I send you a sweatshirt or stickers? Or it's just like a nice touch point with the store too. So I didn't realize that you would have to do that though.
Yeah. Yeah, someone on the show previously just mentioned that the same fact where you still are in control of your inventory when even when it's in the retail stores, right? You still own it and you still
Yes.
need to be present and understanding where it is. And amazing that he built a platform for you to easily do
I know.
that versus calling
Yes.
everybody. He probably
I
needs to
know.
sell
In
that.
store
He
check.
probably needs to sell that to other
He
people.
probably does. I know. He does, but it's great.
Yeah. So you talked a minute ago about Costco and you kind of preparing to go there.
Yes, we're just about to start that.
How did that relationship start?
So I actually met with the Costco buyer years ago. Early on, we were about to get into Whole Foods, and I think I must have connected with her on LinkedIn.
Of course.
But I had a meeting, and she was so sweet. We were not ready at the time, obviously, to launch in Costco. We hadn't even launched in Whole Foods at the time. But they are on the lookout for local brands, and they're watching for when you expand. And so I had kind of always kept that in the back of my mind. They like you to have a certain number of revenue. And so she just said, hey, when you hit that number of revenue, give me a call. And so they typically will start you doing road shows, which is what we're going to start with, where you're in one store for maybe a week and you're able to go in and demo and sell the product. And then the next week you're in another store and you maybe do sets of 5 each time. So we are so excited to do that. They like to grow with businesses. So the goal is that eventually we can be in line with them. That's what they call being in store for Costco.
Got it. I've seen a lot of people do these road shows. So do they give you a set sales goal for the day? Is it really just about trial and seeing people's reactions? How do they measure your success?
Yes. So I'm sure it's about how much velocity how much you sell. But I don't know yet. So we will find out. We're just now onboarding with them. The onboarding process takes about 2 months,
Okay.
I think. So it's very thorough, which all
That's
these retailers,
exciting.
big ones are. Come back to me on that one.
Yeah. How are you gearing up for that? I know you're early in the process, so maybe you don't have an answer, but how do you even know how much inventory to take there?
Yeah, she said that that's something that you'll learn as you go because with these roadshows, you are literally bringing your inventory. So you have to have enough to sell. So she said overestimate because she's seen companies go in there and run out of inventory. So yes, so you have to just come with a lot. I think that one of the benefits for us will be that we're going to start really locally. So if I need to roast like 100 more cases, I could just do it on the fly.
And such a great opportunity for you to find new coffee lovers of your brand and trialing it. And,
Yes.
it's so much traffic that goes through Costco. So I think that's exciting as another branch to expand your brand.
Yes, agreed.
So I do have a question from Instagram, and this may not
Cool.
be you, but if it is, the question
Okay.
is, how do you tell your story without feeling a dose of imposter syndrome?
I experienced this too. I
Jam.
think we all get this
Yeah.
a little bit, right? I always just have to go back to the fact that I've been doing it for so long. And, we've really been through it. And so I just kind of like go back to that and I'm like, okay, no, you deserve to be here. So you just have to tell yourself that. But I think everybody has a little bit of that, especially when you're walking in these rooms where it's intimidating to go and talk to these buyers sometimes. But what I've found is they're all just like you and I, and they're actually really nice and easy to talk to.
That's great advice, especially from you because you've been in some big rooms. I mean, there's some big retailers that you started off in and continue
Yes.
to grow in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and some of those meetings, I mean, the Kroger meeting, there was 10 people on the thing that you're presenting to.
Wow.
So, yeah, but then it's so rewarding when you're done, right? You're like, "I just did that."
Any questions when you were pitching that you got that you didn't expect from those buyers in any of the retailers that you pitched to?
I don't think so. I think I really like came in knowing my stuff front to back. So I knew all of my numbers really well. I knew the lowest price I could give them. I knew my marketing plan every time. I tried to do a lot of research ahead of time and see like what do they allow, what do they want marketing wise. For instance, like Walmart's different, right? They do like everyday low pricing, so they're not looking for promotions. So I just tried to always like really come in so well versed in everything and just practice. So that way the nerves just kind of disappear.
Yeah, yeah. So what is next? What is next for you? What do you envision for we know you're going on the road show soon for Costco, but what's any additional like growth that you're thinking of or dreaming of for the balance of this year and
Yes.
forward?
Yes. So we just came out with a canned cold brew coffee. We're calling it our cold brew for the coast, and we're donating 3 cents per can sold to protect our beaches and oceans. And so I'm really excited to start. We're now going through and pitching it to our different retailers. All these retailers are on a category review period, so you have to like wait till they're accepting submissions. But I'm so excited to go and pitch it to all of them. And then we're also coming out with a cold brew concentrate, which is a concentrated version of that we're starting to sell to restaurants and to hotels nearby too. So kind of diversifying our business a little bit. And then I want to continue growing in retail just because it just does so well for us. I feel like we have a really solid strategy around it as well.
Yeah. So where can our listeners follow, support, and continue to buy?
Yes, so they can buy Beach City coffee in Whole Foods, in a bunch of Kroger banner stores, so Ralph's, King Soopers, Fry's Market, and Walmart. And they can buy it online in Walmart anywhere, and it's like carried in all the distribution centers in Walmart. So even if it's not in your store, they probably have it nearby, and you'll probably get it same day.
Nice.
And then also on our website and Amazon.
Excellent. And I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Jillian, for coming on
Thank
and
you.
sharing your story.